Hello my friends, this is a huge video that I'm so excited to film. It's actually been like 4 years since I've done my last bridal makeup tutorial, but if you're here, then that means you know what this is about. We're doing an updated bridal makeup routine, and this is all of my tips and tricks, and I feel like so much has changed since 4 years ago. I feel like obviously I go for something very classic, very timeless, very chic and effortless. My goal here for you guys is for you to be able to be so confident if you're doing your own wedding makeup at home. I want to give you literally all of my tips and tricks. This is exactly what I would do if I were to get married today. I got married 10 years ago, so I feel like I didn't have certain products and certain techniques that I wish I would have had 10 years ago, but hopefully this is something that helps you. The goal here for me is to empower you guys at home and also to reassure you that it's possible to not only look really beautiful in photos, but also in person. That is my goal in every makeup look that I do, but especially with bridal looks. I did my own makeup 10 years ago on my wedding day. There's no reason why you can't either. And I really hope that this video helps you and walks you through step by step to really show you how to achieve this very natural but defined, sculpted, healthy bridal look. This is literally my dream look, and I'm so excited to walk you through how to get this yourself. Grab a snack. This is a long one, okay? Because I really went in deep in this video and wanted to share every single detail, and I just hope that you guys find it helpful. Also, when I asked you guys what you wanted to see in a updated bridal routine, especially with products, a lot of you said you didn't really care if it was drugstore or high-end. You kind of wanted a mixture of both, so that's what I've done for you today. It's not fully drugstore, not fully high-end, it's a mixture of both. All of these products are things that I really stand behind, but also keep in mind that this is about technique, and also keep in mind that on your big day, ultimately you know your face the best. So if there's something that I do that you don't feel like flatters you, feel free to tweak it and change it, adjust the levels and make it your own. Like, you have full permission obviously to do that. I just really hope that these tips and tricks help you feel like your best self on your wedding day. So without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. Now, I know this is a makeup tutorial, but skincare, especially with bridal looks, is so important, you guys. And I want you to understand that skincare is something that takes months of work prior to your big day. So you don't want to be trying brand new things right before your wedding day, the day before, the week before. You want to really have a solid skincare routine for the months leading up to it. If you choose to, it's also a great time to look into an esthetician for maybe a couple of facials if you need an extra boost or want extra treatments. I am somebody who loves to do everything at home, so there are also other things that I will suggest to you guys that you can look into. Obviously, nailing down a proper skincare routine is number one. I feel like now that I know what I know, I would for sure see an esthetician for a couple of just really yummy facials a few weeks prior to, or like a couple weeks prior to your wedding day, because you don't want something right before unless it's something that's very gentle. But there's also a lot of things you can do over time at home. The first one being red light therapy. This is something that when you're consistent with it, your skin really can see huge results. I'll pop up my favorite LED mask right now. I love the newest one, the 2.0 version from Current Body. It's incredible. It fits wonderfully, and it's one that I've been using like crazy. And if I were to be getting married, even though I got married 10 years ago, I would definitely be using that consistently. Also, another thing that's a great at-home device is a zip device. Now, this is something for nanocurrent and microcurrent, and this is going to really sculpt the face and make things look incredible. I am 8 months pregnant, so I haven't been using my zip in a long time, and I miss it. The way it sculpts is incredible. It's so great. This morning what I did, because I didn't do my zip or anything like that, but I really wanted to kind of like bring some blood flow to the face, so I used my Nurse Jamie roller and did a little lymphatic drainage. I personally love using this face mask right here, the Beauty of Joseon Honey Glow Mask. Oh, it's so good. This is something that it's tried and true for me, and it never breaks me out. It's what I prepped my skin with today. Then I went in with a good toner. Today I used the Rhode Glazing Milk. These are, again, things that I know will not like break me out or anything like that. I put on one of my favorite moisturizers. I did a little bit of eye cream. I'll have these things linked down below for you guys. And this is something that I did a while ago, so it's had time to really sink into the skin. By the way, you guys, I also did press-on nails. So if you really want to get into a DIY moment for brides, press-on nails are a great way to go. These are the new ones from Glamnetic and the Glamzilla collab. I'll have these linked below as well. I think they're just beautiful. So that's what I have going on for skin prep. And again, I'll have everything linked down below. And if I have any discount codes, which I believe I do for the LED mask and also the zip device, I'll have those down below as well if you're somebody who wants to do like at-home treatments. All right, so before we get into the actual makeup application, we've got skin prep going. And again, this is a routine that, and products, I guess, that I personally know work well for my skin. You're gonna wanna take the time to really dive in and get a good skincare routine. A little hack that I've been doing recently, especially being pregnant, is I used ChatGPT actually to help me figure out a pregnancy-safe skincare routine that would really help actually see a difference. And I feel like my skin has been glowing a lot more lately because I've incorporated pregnancy-safe actives. So you could do like a routine and kind of type in what you're looking for, your skin type, and ChatGPT could potentially help. So let's see. The things you're gonna need, my friends, you're gonna need a clean, damp sponge, okay? You're also gonna need clean makeup brushes. I will be sure to tell you everything that I'm using as far as brushes go as well. Skin prepped, okay, clean face. If you're doing your own makeup on your wedding day, you're gonna want to practice this beforehand, but also wear like a button up so you're not having to pull things over top of your head. Keep your neckline in mind. I also brought my skincare down to my neck and chest. I used the Rhode Glazing Milk and then my favorite body lotion, which is the Desi body lotion. It gives just the most beautiful glow. So again, I'll have all these things listed and linked for you guys to make it as easy as humanly possible. Let's get into the actual makeup, which you guys are here for. So again, this is gonna be super in-depth. Like this is gonna be literally what I would be doing if I were getting married today, okay? I love these eye patches, and this is a little makeup artist secret. I feel like it's an industry secret, so to speak, even though I feel like a lot of people know about these now. These are the Skin Iceland Hydro Cool Firming Eye Gels. These are fabulous for makeup prep, for underneath the eyes, but also to like catch any fallout. Again, if you try anything like this, especially skincare, do not do it the day of or the day before your wedding day. Make sure you're trying these things out well in advance so you can see how your skin reacts. But I'm gonna go ahead and pop these on. I do already have eye cream on, but this is gonna also kind of depuff the eyes, hydrate them, and prep them for. It also is great because it kind of acts as a little bit of a shaping device, if that makes sense, to help guide your eyeshadow. So you wanna make sure you place it in a way where it kind of follows your natural lash line, if that makes sense, to catch any fallout and to like help you create your shape right away. Oh, I should also say, give yourself plenty of time on the day of to do your makeup. There's probably gonna be people around, depending on your situation. So make sure you give yourself enough time so that in case you're chatting or whatever, you don't feel rushed getting ready on your wedding day. All right, first things first, we're actually gonna start with brows. Brows frame the face. I'm gonna use my Holy Grail brow pencil, which is from my brand, Revi Beauty. It is the Easy Everyday Brow Pencil. I use mine in the shade dark brown, and I can't live without this. So I'm gonna brush up the brows, and you kind of wanna make sure your skincare isn't too greasy around the brow area. If for some reason you feel like it is, you can always take a bit of translucent powder prior and kind of just tap it in to take down some of that grease. But mine feel fine, so I'm not gonna worry about that. Okay, brows frame the face. So take your time with brows. I will do my little tutorial, which I've done several times before, but in case you're new here, let me show you how I like to map out my brows. So I'll take my pencil and I'll press it against my nose to make my first little mark. You don't want to start your brows from the nostril because it can actually make your brows too far apart and can make your nose look wider than maybe it is. So that's why pressing it in is really important to get the brow pencil a little bit closer together than you might think. Then you're gonna take it from the center of the nose through the pupil to kind of mark where the highest point should be. Then from the end of the nose, this is where you use the end of the eye, that's where the brow should end. And now we kind of connect the dots. So I personally have a little bit more to fill in than maybe some people, but I'm just gonna start sketching in the brows. And this is something that like we can revisit. So you just want a good shape to start. Sometimes when I do my brows first and I get to the other parts of the makeup, my brows can kind of fade after powder and concealer, but we can always revisit that. So don't stress too much. This is just to get a good initial shape for your eyes. And I always like to flip over my brush or pencil to the spoolie side to kind of brush things through. Then we're just doing the other brow to match. And this is where you kind of want to look back and forth. I have one brow that's a bit higher naturally than the other, so I like to fill in a bit higher on this brow just to make it look a little more cohesive. These under eye patches feel so good. It's been a while since I've used them like properly in a tutorial. They're so cooling. If you're getting ready really early in the morning, I'm serious, something like this is so helpful. Brows, honestly, I feel like I spend the most time on because you want everything to have that definition, but you don't want it to look blocky or unnatural. So I like to just really slowly build to make sure I don't overdo anything. And I mean, your wedding day, you really want to make sure you look your very best. So just take your time on things, you know? I feel like I'm happy with where that's at for now. We can always add more. Now, this is something that I don't always do on an everyday basis, but it does make a difference, I feel like, especially on a wedding day. So I'm actually going to kind of carve out the brows a little bit, and I'm going to be using the concealer that we'll be using on the face later. This is the NARS Soft Matte Creamy Concealer. I'm going to be taking a tiny amount of this, literally tiny. This is where you're going to want to use the back of your hand, and we'll be doing this throughout the entire tutorial. Take a little bit of whatever concealer it is, get it primed on the brush. Now this one is from the Morphe Ariel collection. It's the A19. And start lower than you think, okay? I'm starting like right here on the brows so that you can take the excess product and work it up toward the under portion of the brows. This is just gonna really create a beautifully precise brow, but also start to prime the eyes. You can take what's left and kind of bring it down, and I'm not overdoing the concealer on the eyes, you guys. I feel like this is something that I would do differently now versus the tutorial I filmed 4 years ago. Just using less on the eyes. So same thing here. It also helps to kind of carve out the top of the brows too, which I'll show you, so that there's no starting and stopping point between your foundation and concealer. And you'll see I like to take it and kind of like connect the two here. Then I'll go in between the brows. That way you don't overload the concealer later. So we're gonna kind of work our way around. This cancels out redness around the brows, sharpens up the brow, and just looks really clean, especially in pictures. But you'll notice a theme throughout this entire tutorial, like less is more, genuinely. Don't be painting a huge thing like a stripe of concealer around your brows. It's just not gonna look good. I'm gonna take a sponge now. I'm gonna just take what's left on the back of my hand of that. This is a sponge from Amazon that I love so much. I'll have it linked down below. I'm just gonna kind of press around, and then I'm gonna take what's left and kind of apply it all over the rest of the eyelid to start to prep that. And you can see it's really helpful to just kind of like drag it onto that eye patch. I like to go back one more time with my brow spoolie and just soften things up one more time. So that's brows for now. We will revisit them in a bit. When it comes to eyeshadow, I love a liquid shadow these days. I've got two different options. One is from Armani if you wanted to like splurge a bit. This is the shade 18M. And then the other one is from Moira. This is the shade 01 My Way. They're very similar, but you just want to kind of pick something that is pretty close to your skin tone. So that's why these are kind of like light taupey browns for me. These are going to act as a great base for your makeup. I'm going to use the Moira one because I feel like I really want this video to be a good mix of high-end and drugstore. I love the Armani one though, if you want to splurge. I'm going to be picking that up from the back of my hand with the BK Beauty 203 brush. This is going to be our eyeshadow primer for today, and it's going to start blocking out a bit of that color. So I'm going to start by applying this on just the eyelid, and you'll see how closely it matches my skin tone, but it's starting to give a little bit of definition because it does have that brownish taupey undertone, and it has a beautiful matte finish. I find that liquid shadows make a really great eye primer, and this specific formula lasts like crazy. Same thing on the other eye. I also feel like liquid shadows kind of do the same thing as concealer, where it conceals some of the hyperpigmentation or veins in the eyelids. Gives you a good place to start. Good base. And you'll notice I'm bringing it inwards a little bit, because this color for me specifically, it's so close to my skin tone and it's almost like bronzery. I'm slimming this area here by adding just a bit, and we'll add some contour there as well, but just adding a tiny bit of that to kind of sculpt this area a bit as well. All right. When it comes to eyeshadow, there's so many different palettes you can use. I personally, if I were getting married today, literally, I would use this. This is the Makeup by Mario Master Matte's Neutrals palette. For me personally, I have a neutral undertone and I just feel like these tones are so great and very flattering. There's also two from ColourPop that I really love that I'll link down below. One of them is That's Taupe palette. The other one is Going Coconuts. You can get very similar looks from both the palettes. The ColourPop palettes obviously have shimmers in them. This is just a matte palette, so it's kind of up to you. But this is one of my favorites. I'm so in love with it. We're gonna start off by taking this light shade on the Nikki LaRose BK Beauty N13 brush. And we're gonna start by just kind of layering this right on top of that Moira liquid shadow. This will be kind of a transition shade, but also we're using it to lightly set that shadow. It does dry down, the liquid shadow, so you don't really need to do anything crazy, but we're just gonna start with this. Work in light layers. You can always add more. It's much harder to take away. Then I'm gonna use my favorite shade in the palette. This one has a little bit of pink in it. We're just gonna use the same brush. And I'm gonna start to add a little bit more definition into the crease. Building this up slowly. And you can see, again, how this little eye patch is helping us create a really nice shape already. The goal here with eyeshadow is to just enhance your natural eye shape. At least for me, that's my goal. I don't want it to look too overdone, but you do have to add a little bit more dimension for it to catch on camera. Also, we're trying to make it look good in person, so it's a really happy balance, you know? You wanna find that happy medium, so work in light layers and really take your time blending. All right, next, we're gonna take a little bit more of a precise brush. I'm gonna use the BK Beauty 207, and we're gonna go into this color right here, this taupe. And we're going to start to add a little bit of definition on the outer corner. I like to kind of scribble this almost like a shadowing. We will be adding some eyeliner in just a second. And then kind of enhancing that crease just a bit, working back and forth. Same thing on this eye, a little bit on the lash line, and then kind of sketching in that crease and creating a little more depth. Next, we're going to do something that I love to do to create more dimension. We're going to take these two matte shades. You can use any sort of like lighter color. My color is a little bit lighter than maybe you would go for, depending on your skin tone. You just want it to be a bit lighter than your natural skin tone, and we're gonna start to highlight almost the eyelid. So we've been creating contrast and depth using the deeper shades in the crease, and now we're gonna kind of bring things forward using a lighter shade. There's just something that I love so much about a bit of a brighter eyelid right on the lash line, especially once we do eyeliner and once you pop on mascara. I think the contrast just looks good in pictures, and I love focusing a little bit more on my lashes personally in a look, especially a bridal look. So we're just gonna add a bit of a highlighting vibe here. I'm also taking this in this inner portion of the eye right here, again to kind of bring things closer together and smooth things out. Also going to take some of that right underneath the highest point of the brow, and then we're going to go back into the Nikki LaRose N13 brush that we used earlier and just kind of rebuff and blend over all of that. To me, this is plenty of eyeshadow. Some of you might want less, which you can do less of. I do want to add a little bit of something special to the lids using another liquid shadow. There's one that I love from Moira as well called Sugar Love, which you could use, but my favorite ever for this type of a look is Cressida from Lisa Eldridge. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to pop this on the back of my hand. It's a beautiful champagne, and I will use a powder on top. You'll see in just a second, but there's something about a liquid that adds something so magical, and layering liquids and powders, I feel like help things last so much longer. So I'm taking this on a little brush. This is the Angie Hot and Flashy BK Beauty A504, and I'm just starting to add this literally right on top of where we applied the matte shades. So we're just kind of mimicking the same shape here. I really love focusing a little bit of extra shimmer right in the center of the lid. I think there's something so pretty and magical about when the light catches right in the center. I think this is just the prettiest shadow. I just realized as I'm doing this, I forgot to like verbally say to prep your lips along with your skincare, you guys. I already did, so I like forgot to say it, but I've got my Revie Beauty Lip Renewal Treatment Oil. This is something that I wear overnight, and it is the last step of my skincare routine. But you're gonna wanna prep the lips at the very beginning of your makeup routine so that by the time you get to lips, they're ready to go. All right, we're gonna add a little bit of definition to the waterline. I'm gonna use this Sephora eyeliner in the shade Tiramisu. It's a really beautiful kind of deep brown. It's a little bit more on the cool tone side, which I like for myself. Now with eyeliner, you can do whatever you feel flatters you most or whatever you feel most comfortable in. I personally prefer like a brown or like a taupe over a black, but mostly because I have pretty fair skin and I feel like sometimes black can be overpowering on me personally, but if you can't live without your black liner, this is where you make that judgment. And you can totally wear your favorite black liner. I'm just blending this out a bit with the Nikki Rose N11 brush. Now I always like to kind of set my eyeliner with a bit of shadow, so I'm gonna go back into the Mario palette and we're gonna take this dark brown right here, tap off the excess on the back of my hand, and just lightly kind of set that right up against the lash line. And this is why I like to do my eyes first. In case there's fallout, it doesn't mess with the complexion. Okay, I'm really happy with my eye look right now. I'm gonna go ahead and add top lash mascara. Some people might not like to do this right now. I'm gonna use my Maybelline Lash Sensational. You're gonna want to pick a waterproof version of your favorite mascara or your most tried and true. Now, I'm gonna just do a bit and then we'll layer on a bit more later, but I'm really wanting to kind of have some on there just to see what things are looking like. I really am happy with the eye look though. Okay, we are going to take off our patches and you'll see how much cleaner things look without us having to use like a makeup wipe. It's a really nice, softly defined line. I feel like the eyes look lifted. There's really not much you have to fix, which is just so nice. So now we're gonna move into complexion and then we'll go back to eyes. All right, complexion, you guys. This is probably the most important part of your wedding makeup. So we want to make sure that it's going to be very long lasting, but it has to look good in person. This is where I feel like most brides probably get freaked out because, you know, you don't want to look unnatural, but it is important to do certain things to look good in pictures. It's just, you do need a little bit more for it to photograph well. That's just how it goes. But it's my passion to make sure that you feel like yourself, that you feel confident in your skin. So I'm gonna show you all the tips and tricks. Now, a lot of this comes down to the amount that you use. So for longevity, we're gonna actually kind of prep the skin with a setting spray. This is not something that I do all the time, but for a wedding situation, this is an extra step that I think is helpful. We're gonna be using the Fenty Beauty Makeup Extending Setting Spray. This is one of my current favorites. Just a light mist all over. And remember, we already prepped the skin with skincare and it's been marinating for a while. Next, I'm gonna take my favorite primer. This is a drugstore primer. It is so good. This is the Maybelline Grippy Serum. We're gonna do a little bit of this. A little goes a long way. And you're gonna wanna focus this on the areas that you know you kind of like lose your makeup first. For me, it's the T-zone. So I am gonna go ham in the T-zone and then blend it out across the rest of the face. Now, this is where you also want to kind of assess your own skin situation, because here's the thing. I feel like most brides want to look healthy, right? We want to look healthy and we want to look glowy. But there's a fine line between healthy and glowy and greasy, especially when it comes to wanting long wear makeup. So there are some glowy primers out there, but unless you have super dry skin, and honestly, I would suggest adding glow with like products on top of the skin versus priming the skin. That's why really nailing down your skincare routine is gonna give you that lit from within glow. I would focus there. You don't want things slipping and sliding, or like, of course, glowy primers look so pretty when they're first applied, but then give it a few hours, especially if it's a hot day, and you're gonna look oily or greasy, and we don't want that. So I personally like to stick to less glow for primers and doing that later with like highlighters. This is an optional product, the Easy Blur Primer from Huda Beauty. There's also the Tarte one. There's a blur stick from Lancome that got discontinued. That's honestly what I would have suggested, but they don't make it anymore. But if you have larger pores, taking the tiniest amount of some sort of a blurring stick or primer is gonna really help with that. So I'm taking the tiniest amount, okay? Because you don't want to overdo these pore primers either. And I'm just going right kind of in the areas where we have the largest pores. And this is going to give you that soft focus airbrush effect in person, which we are going for, right? We want everyone to be like, wow, you look flawless. But a little goes a long way. I think that's the main thing, okay? As we go through this, less is more. You can always add more. Do not dollop primers or like drip things on your face. It's just not going to look good at the end of the day or in person. You'll have too much on your skin. All right, so now we're going to go into a little bit of a different technique. I'm going to actually be doing a little bit of underpainting, and I'm sure you guys have seen this before. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. It's a really great technique that helps your makeup look so natural in person, but also look so good on camera. Every time I do this, I'm telling you, like on camera, it just gives you structure, and it's a pro makeup artist tip. This is not something you would have to do every day, but it is good to know about. So we're gonna start with some cream bronzers. You can use whatever you like. I like a stick version. I just think it works best for underpainting, and I'm gonna be mixing 2 colors. So for me, I'm gonna take the Rare Beauty Bright Side and mix that a little bit with the Mario shaping stick in the shade Fair. I just like the colors of these together. Now we're gonna take the BK Beauty 109. I'm gonna mix these together on the back of my hand. Notice we're not applying this directly to the face. And essentially, what underpainting is it gives you the bones and the structure, so to speak, underneath your foundation. So I'm going higher than you would think, or the cheekbones, and we're gonna start to sculpt this out. I'm also gonna take this and start to buff it into the hairline and the forehead to start sculpting. Counterintuitive if you've never done this before, but I promise it is so helpful. And again, give this a practice, you know, like see if you like this. You don't have to do this, but I really do think it makes a huge difference. Then I'm gonna take this from like kind of the sides of the ears underneath the jaw. Again, we're creating that shape, and in pictures, especially flash photography, these extra steps really make a big difference. Remember, less is more though. Just because we're doing more steps does not mean you need to have more product. You can have the best of all the worlds. Okay, I'm also gonna take some of this. I'm just gonna use the Mario one for this actually. And I'm gonna take a little more of the Mario one first to kind of further sculpt the cheekbones. And then I'm gonna take some on a smaller brush. This is the A501. From BK Beauty, and we're gonna do some nose contour. The nice thing about underpainting is it does not have to be perfect right away because we have a lot more steps to do and things to put on top as well. Also going to start shaping out the lips a bit, under the nose, all the things. All right, now that we have a good basic structure going, we are going to reverse this with a brightener. I like to use a brightener for this instead of a concealer because we're gonna still use a concealer later, but this will allow us to use less concealer. This is the Cali Ray brightener, the Hideaway concealer. This shade is currently sold out, I believe, but you can use whatever kind of brightener you like. I'm taking some on the back of my hand, then applying this with the BK Beauty A506. And we're gonna start to highlight, and you want some of that more slightly stark contrast, so to speak. So do a brightener that's a bit brighter. You could also use a lighter concealer if you don't want something too tinted. This one is like a light pink. Kind of feels concealery for my skin tone, but you'll see I'm just kind of creating highlights and shadows in a little bit more of a stark way than what you would think. It looks a little crazy, but it comes together. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit more of that, and this is where I also like to kind of brighten and bring forward right underneath the cheekbones here. And I'm using the smallest amount, you guys. And then we're gonna kind of create like a little half circle on the forehead, and a little bit down the center of the nose, chin, all the things. Okay. It's okay if it doesn't look perfectly blended yet, because this is where the next step comes in. Also, it's good to have makeup wipes on hand, you guys, for wiping off the back of your hand as you go through this. All right, we're going to now go over everything with foundation. My holy grail foundation is the Terracotta Guerlain and also the NARS Light Reflecting. This one is more matte. This one has a bit of glow, but both wear really well on me. These are both my tried and trues. If you're not somebody who wants to splurge a lot on foundations, I love the Maybelline Skin Tint. The 24-hour one has great like coverage and it has great longevity. If you're wanting this with a little more glow, you could mix in this one. I wouldn't wear this by itself. I feel like this is not as long wear, but if you maybe combined it, it would work out. So I'm actually going to combine my two favorites. I know that seems extra, but it's your wedding day. If you have one formula that you love, that you know works well, stick with that. But the thing is, I really love combining my faves because you get the longevity and a slightly more matte finish from the Guerlain, plus a little bit of glow from the NARS. By the way, I don't know if you want to know, but I wear the shade 0.5N in the Guerlain matte one and then Mont Blanc in the NARS. So we're going to take the foundations, less is more, on the back of my hand with the Nikki LaRose N15 brush. And this is where we're going to start to kind of stipple, pat it, and then start to lightly buff. This brush is really good for underpainting because as we go over, like it's not too dense of a brush, and you can see how it just starts to slowly blend the highlights with the contour. You want to go over everything really, really lightly. We're going to add back in more definition later with some powders. So don't panic if you feel like you're starting to erase some of that structure. It's actually still there, believe it or not, especially in pictures. But we just want to kind of like buff this all over really gently. Then I'm going to take my sponge and just kind of pick up what's left on the back of my hand. This kind of creates a barrier so it doesn't pull up too much of the product, but it will help you smooth things out. And I'm just going to press those foundations into the skin. Okay, this is where we can add back in a little bit of structure if we want to. I am going to do a little bit. I'm going to take a bit more of the Mario contour. This Mario contour, I'm telling you, it looks so good in pictures. I don't know. I love it. So I'm going to take just a bit of that and we're going to start to just lightly tap. Remember where we were like creating lines before? Now we're just kind of adding back in a little bit more shape before going in with concealer. And I just think it makes everything look so beautiful and blended and fresh and not too over the top. Like my skin's looking so good in person, you guys, if I do say so myself. We're also going to take a bit more of that and run down the sides of the nose and around the lips a bit. And the jawline too. I feel like the jawline, we want to look nice and sculpted on our wedding day. And a tip that Nikki LaRose taught me, changed my life, is to take your contour on like the sides of the neck. You are gonna wanna kind of keep in mind your hairstyle, I should say. So if your hair is up, literally take your makeup and blend it as far back as possible. If your ears are being shown, take your bronzer and get a little on your ears, okay? Like you want to make sure everything looks so seamless, so that's something good to keep in mind. If your neckline is a bit lower, you might want to take some of your bronzer or whatever down further. That's where you've got to assess your own situation, you know what I mean? All right, we're gonna go into concealer now. Remember how we used the NARS Soft Matte Creamy Concealer. Now this seems intimidating, especially for natural complexion girlies who don't want to look like you're wearing a lot of makeup. Neither do I. This is such a beautiful concealer though. Oh my gosh, and you have to use the right amount. So use a small amount and it's gonna make you look airbrushed. If you have any sort of acne or hyperpigmentation, it's also amazing for that. Of course, you'd want to get a shade that matches your skin tone versus something that's a little more brightening, but this is phenomenal. Oh, how I wish this was around when I got married. So you'll see how I'm starting the concealer a little bit lower underneath the eyes. I don't want to look cakey and crusty underneath the eyes, okay? And there's a way for us to make it look fresh and bright without looking heavy. We don't want to look heavy under the eyes. So I'm taking this lower and it smooths out the pores so nicely too. I'm also bringing it on the sides of the nose a little bit to further enhance that nose contour. And I'm continuing to kind of pick some up off the back of my hand and then bring it up a little bit. You'll notice that, first of all, I'm not globbing it onto my face. You'll get way too much product, and I'm also not taking it all the way up to the lash line. That'll help avoid looking too heavy in that area. So I'm just kind of tapping, blending, buffing, bringing it down around the nostrils as well. I feel like a lot of us have redness here. Also going to put some on my chin just to bring that forward. Also going to take a tiny bit and kind of mimic that area where we put the brightener in the center of the forehead. I don't like to go too ham on the forehead either. I feel like too much forehead makeup is a dead giveaway. I mean, this look is not like a no makeup look by any means. We're not fooling anybody here into thinking we're not wearing any makeup, but do you know what I mean? I just don't want it to look overdone. I'm just taking my sponge now and pressing that into the skin. Going back and forth from sponges and brushes is so key because I think it just helps maintain that freshness and that skin-like finish, which is what we are all after, right? I think, on our wedding day. I feel like the brows got a little erased, but that's okay. We can revisit in a minute. Okay, I am beyond happy with how my skin is looking. We're gonna use some powders now. Don't be afraid of powders, please, for the love. You have to just use the right ones. My holy grail is Huda Beauty. I love it so much. Another great one that I've been loving is the Mario one, but I'm gonna stick to my classic one. Like if I were to be getting married, I might mix a few things, honestly, if I were actually getting married, but I don't wanna mix powders if it's not necessary for you guys to keep it simple. We are going to take the Huda Beauty powder. Now, I love mine in the shade Cupcake. It's so great. And I love this brush from Nikki LaRose, the N14 brush. Again, with powder, less is more, okay? Tap off the excess. We're gonna go in with this, and first, before we go setting the under eyes, we are gonna buff everything out concealer-wise. I don't want a single crease, because if you're creasing and you put powder on it, you're gonna lock it in. And then we're going to take a small amount of powder and start just tapping it into the under eye area and into this area here. And on the sides of the nose, we're just going to start to lock in the concealer. Working in light layers. We're not slapping on a ton of powder. We're not baking yet. We can do a little baking in a second, but you're going to want that initial layer of powder all over. And please don't be afraid of powder, you guys. Powder is the thing that gives the longevity, that gives the airbrushed look on camera and in person. It's what's going to make all of your hard work worth it when it comes to your wedding makeup. So don't be afraid of powder. Again, you just have to use the right amount and find the right formula for your skin type. So it might take a little while, I don't know, to like find the one that works best for you. If you want to take my word for it, I think the Huda Beauty one is so phenomenal. I've seen some people say that they find it drying, but honestly, I feel like just using less, if that's the case, could solve that issue. If not, that's where you'll have to do a little bit of research and trial and error on yourself and figure out a powder that like really works well for your skin type. Now, I want to say again, powders are so important, and you might feel a little bit more matte than what you're hoping for later, but trust in the warmth of your complexion and also the natural oils coming throughout the day. That's going to make a huge difference. So it's better to go a little bit more matte than you think up front, because if you've got a 9-hour day ahead of you or longer, everything will melt throughout the day as well. It'll melt together. So I'm just tapping this all over. Then I like to take a little more powder. I'm taking a clean N15 brush, not the one that we used with foundation on it. And I'm just buffing powder on the outsides of the face too, because we're gonna layer some powders on top, and powder always layers better over powder. That's how you're gonna get that kind of watercolor finish versus something too harsh. So I always take a little powder and set the outside of the face as well. Things are looking nice, my friends. Now, we're gonna layer. We're gonna take another bronzer. We're gonna use a powder one. I love this Milani one. It's one of my favorites. So we're gonna use this today. You can use whatever bronzer you love, but this is the Milani Silky Matte Bronzer in the shade 01. I'm gonna take that on an A507 brush. And by the way, even with powders, I'm always tapping a little bit on my hand or whatever, just to make sure I don't overdo things. We're gonna start to warm things up again. I love bronzer, okay? And I feel like everyone wants to just feel healthy on their wedding day. So we're gonna layer powder over top of where we applied all those creams, making sure to get it in the hairline a little bit so that there's not like a harsh line here. I'm also taking that along the jawline, neckline, and a bit down the neck. We'll pretend this is my dress neckline, and I'll bronze things up a bit here. If you're like self-tanning and things like that as well, you want to keep that in mind and be testing all those things with your makeup like prior to your wedding day, because the last thing you need is to like get all these products and then get a spray tan or something and then nothing matches. So just keep that in mind. Full on test run like a couple of times before your actual day of, so that you're not stressed and you know exactly what colors to use as well. Okay, I'm gonna take what's left on the big powder brush and just kind of go over that one more time. Okay, I feel like it's a good time to maybe revisit the eyes. So we're gonna go in with that same Moira liquid shadow. Now I love a little lower lash line makeup. Some people don't, and you can make that judgment call if you feel like it makes you look too heavy underneath the lower lash line or under the eyes. I love it personally. So I'm gonna take that same Moira liquid shadow that we used as our eyeshadow base on the top lid, and I'm gonna brush that with the BK207 brush along the lower lash line. I'm also gonna kind of take that and allow it to connect into the top lash line a bit as well. Okay, this next step is optional, but I love a good bright waterline. So I'm gonna take this Chantecaille Brightening Eye Kajal, the shade Nude, and I'm gonna line the waterline with this. Next, I'm gonna revisit the Mario palette, and we're gonna take the pinky shade, this one, tap a bit on my hand, and go right up against the lash line with this. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of this taupey shade on the same brush. This is the N12 brush from the Nikki LaRose collection, and I'm gonna buff that on the outer third of the lower lash line. I don't want to overdo the lower lash line, but I think a little bit of makeup here, especially in pictures, looks really good and cohesive. So I personally wouldn't skip it if I were you, but again, it's your wedding day. You can call the shots ultimately on like what you feel the most confident in. I always like to take my powder brush, kind of smooth that out and sweep that up a bit. Okay, I'm gonna add a teeny bit of lower lash mascara now, using the same Maybelline mascara. Just a little bit, like you really don't need too much, but I love a good lower lash mascara. I will be doing some falsies in just a minute on the top lash line, so it'll look more full up there, but this is a good place to stop, I feel, for now for the lower lash mascara. All right, now we're gonna do blush, which I feel like is such a fun moment for brides, right? We're gonna layer a couple of different formulas. I'm gonna start off with this Rare Beauty Happy Matte Bouncy Blush. This is a really beautiful kind of cream to powder formula. It just has a little bit more of like a punchiness, and layering products again is gonna really help with longevity. You could also go in with like a liquid during the underpainting step. But I personally just feel like layering a couple of more powdery blushes does the trick. But it's up to you. So we're gonna take the shade Happy and just start to tap this higher up on the cheeks than you might think, just for a little bit of a different layer. And this does have a matte finish, but I'm gonna layer something with some glow right on top afterwards. And that thing is this. I feel like this is perfect for brides. This is also from my brand Revi Beauty. This is the Endless Diffusion Everyday Baked Blush in the shade Daydream. I feel like for so many brides, this is gonna be a great formula and color to work with. It's a perfect peachy pink. So we're gonna start by taking that on my blush brush. This is also from my brand. I created this brush to perfectly go with this formula. You can smile and just start applying this to the apples of the cheeks. The thing I love about this baked formula is it has a little bit of glow, but it's not sparkly, okay? I was so picky with that when it came to developing this formula. I did not want glitter in my blush, but it also is so creamy and hydrating, so it's gonna give you that almost cream blush effect without sacrificing like the longevity, all the things. I also like to put just a little bit of blush kind of on the forehead, on the chin, just to keep things looking really, really fresh. You could also put a bit on like your neck if you wanted to, unless you're naturally red there, maybe skip it, but just to kind of add a really healthy glow on the entire face. And again, with blush is usually the first thing to fade. So practice the amount you use, but in general, especially on a wedding day, I would suggest going with a little bit more than what you think. I also really love to take my blush, just a tiny bit, on an eyeshadow brush. This is the 211 from BK Beauty. And I love to just sweep a little bit right here, just to add some warmth there as well. You can also do this with bronzer. But either way, that's a fun little trick. Okay, we're gonna jump around a little bit again. I'm gonna revisit the brows, brush up my brow hairs, and then we're gonna do individual lashes on the lashes. So I'm just kind of revisiting the brows because, again, like I said, sometimes after you do your concealer and everything, you can lose some of that structure, but it's always good to have up front, even if it means you have to kind of touch up later. For the eye shape, I think it just makes the biggest difference. Okay, now that the brows are kind of back to the definition that I want, we're now going to do individual lashes. This is something that is going to take a little practice if you choose to do it, but it's worth it, especially versus like a strip lash, which if you cry or something like that, you could risk the whole thing popping off. So I think individual lashes just look better and are the way to go. I love the Ardell individual lashes, not free, flares, medium and short. So I'll show you guys how to do this. I also love using the Duo Lash Adhesive. They have a dark glue and then they also have clear glue. I was gonna use the dark one, but because I have like a really soft lash line, I'm gonna use the clear. So we're gonna take a little bit of this and dollop it on the back of my hand, like that. You're gonna need tweezers and you're gonna need a mirror. And I like to start from the outside in, usually. And I like to mix medium and short length. You could do long length, but I feel like medium and short is fine. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna gently grab one lash at a time, and then you're going to dip it in your little dollop of glue. This is time consuming, so make sure you've got the time. Worth it. You're gonna let it get a little bit tacky. You're gonna hold your mirror underneath your eye. You're gonna gently bounce your hand on the side of your face, and then on top of your lash, you're going to pop it right against the lash line. I always like to take the back of my tweezers and kind of press it down and keep count. This is also something that you're gonna want to practice long before the wedding. So now we're gonna do another medium right next to it. That's 2, that's 3. If you wanna splurge, like if you're really good at individual lashes, the Swede Nikki makeup lashes are so phenomenal. I'll have those linked down below too. If you're just a beginner, I feel like these Ardell ones are perfect, but if you want something special, the Swede ones are really good. Okay, that's 4 mediums. I think I'm ready for some short length. There's one short one. I'm thinking maybe 3 of these. I like to do my individual lashes kind of on just like the outer half of my eye. I don't bring them all the way in, but you can play around with the shape. You can sometimes do a longer one in the center if you want more of a rounded eye shape. There's a lot of options. There's 2. I think we'll just do one more. Yeah, I like where that is. Now the glue is definitely more white. It will dry all the way and turn clear. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side off camera so I don't bore you, but just copy the same thing, same amount of lashes on the other side. Okay, while we wait for the lash glue to dry, let's add a little bit of highlighter. If there's one thing that screams bridal to me that I feel like every bride should have, or makeup artist in their kit, it's this palette. This is the Dior Backstage highlighting palette, and it is just divine. Every time I've ever done anyone's bridal makeup, I always use this, and if I were to get married today, I literally would use the same thing. I'm gonna mix these 2 colors, and I'm going to very lightly start to buff this into the skin. Now this is where we can add some of that glow, but be strategic, okay? You don't want to look greasy, but just having a little bit I think really helps and makes it look super healthy when it comes to the skin. I'm also gonna take a bit of that with a little bit more of the white for myself personally, and we're gonna add a bit of highlight to the inner corner here. I feel like these little details make a huge difference in the long run. I'm also gonna take a tiny bit right here just for funsies. And then I always like to take my sponge and kind of press on top of that. Since the lash glue is still drying, we're gonna move to lips. My lips are perfectly primed and prepped thanks to my lip oil. Genuinely, it's my holy grail. I cannot live without it. We're gonna do lip combo, which I feel like a bridal lip combo is so fun, so exciting. There's so many different directions we could go, and I tested out a few, but I think I've got my final choice. I think. We will see how it goes. First things first, we're gonna take a little bit of powder and just go around the edges of the lips to make sure there's no slippiness from the lip oil that will affect the longevity of what we do next. Now, I personally love a more sculpted lip look. A lip combo is something that you might have to test a little bit to figure out what works best for you. I'm gonna be using my Revie Beauty Soft Definition Longwear Lip Liner. This is a brand new launch for us, but in the shade Almond. This is something that I wish I had on my wedding day 10 years ago. This is such a good formula. The shade gives a little bit more of a sculpt to the lips. Now with lips, you're gonna really want to go light with the layers as well. So you'll see I'm barely touching my lips and just doing a really soft definition, so to speak. And then I'm taking my finger and blending this out. We're gonna work in layers. I love to overline here and here, and then keep the rest really close to the natural, actually like in the natural lip line. And I'm just gonna continue to layer and blur. And then something else that I feel like I wish I would have had is a lip stain. I'm gonna take this lip contour stain from Huda Beauty in the shade Rosewood. And I'm gonna use this kind of on the outside of the lips, like this, just to add a little bit of a pink stain, very lightly. Okay, I'm getting so distracted because this lash glue, which said it was white/clear, is not drying clear. And I've used Duo before many times. So tell me why it's not drying clear. Maybe I got like a bad batch. I don't know. I wish I would have used the dark glue. Let this be a lesson. I'm taking my NYX black eyeliner and like penciling this on top or tapping it on top of the lash line because I cannot have the glue not being clear. This is why it's good to test it out before your actual day of, in case your glue turns white like mine. Literally, I've never had that happen before. I've used that glue for years. I just wanted a fresh bottle because mine was like dried up. Who knows? So I'm just kind of covering the lash line with a liquid liner. Anyway, back to lippies. I'm gonna go back into Almond and further sculpt things out. Then I'm gonna take my powder brush again and set the liner. Now this is where I was in a little bit of a dilemma because I feel like I personally would use my Effortless Lips in the shade Dahlia, which is something I created and launched for V Beauty with because it was my dream everyday lip formula. But this does lean more mauve. For some brides, I feel like maybe something more pink would flatter you more. Depends. So Peony is my second option. And I just can't pick. I don't know. I'm almost feeling like because of the Daydream blush, maybe we do a bit of Peony, see where this goes. I think Peony is so great for just a hint of warmth. Because I do love a good mauve lip, you know? But the pink in this is so nice. Do we layer? To me, that's maybe a happy medium. I don't know. If you like a mauve lip, Dahlia is literally perfect. If you want something that feels a little more springtime, a little more summer, a little more fresh, maybe Peony, or do what I did and mix them. All right, we're going to assess the situation, guys, which is the most important part before we finish any makeup look, but especially a wedding makeup look. We are going to add a bit more bronzer onto the forehead with what's left on the brush. I'm honestly so happy with how this turned out, you guys, though. I have done a little practice run, but this is where I did like a full out, you know, every single step, and I really love how it turned out. So I'm pretty happy with where things are at. Let's do a little bit of Daydream blush, a little more, just here on the apples, and you'll see how it, like the more you add, the more of that gorgeous glow you get. And now, once we like where things are at, which we do, it's time for setting spray, okay? We're gonna layer 2 setting sprays. The first one being what we started with, which was the Fenty Beauty. This is my current favorite. I have a lot of favorites, but currently, this is what I trust. So I'm gonna douse this all over the face. Hold it further back though so it doesn't spit too much at you. Let that sink in. Then, when it's almost dry, take your sponge. This is where like that skin-like finish is gonna come back. But again, you don't have to compromise with longevity because we've got powders, everything. But we're just gonna lightly tap it in with your sponge. And then hairspray for your face, you guys, the One Size On Till Dawn. If you're super dry, you might not need to double up. If you've got any chance of oils coming through, things breaking down, this is gonna make your makeup literally look the same till the end of the night. I like to focus this in my T-zone and keep the sides fresh because this is where I get the oiliest. So I'm gonna spray it in the center. It's literally hairspray for your face. I'm gonna let that dry down a bit too, and then tap it in with a sponge. I would also suggest a mattifying blurring powder, such as this one from Rimmel. This has stood the test of time for me and many brides that I've done. I love to just apply this right over the areas where I get the most shine. So for me in the forehead, right here, tip of the nose, and the chin. This is also great to keep in your little bag for touch-ups. And then another great powder option, you guys, is the Charlotte Tilbury one. I feel like this is great if you are noticing you need a little like coverage throughout the day or something, and you want just to like brighten up the under eyes again. Buffing this in is so great and so foolproof. So this is another excellent choice. The Rimmel one doesn't have color, so if you want something that's gonna like brighten, the Charlotte Tilbury one is wonderful. Now we're gonna need to set the brows. I'm gonna use the Benefit 24-hour brow setter for this. And we're gonna run this through the brows. And then last but not least, to blend the lashes, the individuals with my real lashes, we're gonna take a bit more mascara and just kind of lightly blend the two together. And then you guys, I think that's everything. I think that's it. All right, you guys, if you're still here, thank you for watching. This is the final look. I love how this turned out. I feel like it is so perfect, so perfectly bridal. It's classic, it's got a little bit of glamour, but especially in pictures, it's not gonna look overdone. And in real life, like, I wish you could see how flawless this looks. Like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but this is like one of the best looks I've ever done. Okay, I was not planning on doing this, but I felt like I had to. This is the end of my wedding makeup day. I haven't done any touch-ups, okay? Any touch-ups at all. And I've been wearing this for 11 hours. In 90-degree weather today, I was sweating profusely. And I just wanted to prove how long wearing this is. It would look even better if I were to have touched it up like I would have on an actual wedding day. Obviously, I've eaten like 17 times. I did not retouch up my lip today because I forgot to bring it with me. We were running errands. But my complexion looks so good. The fact that it lasted in the heat, I really wanted to like just show you to I don't know, just show you how long wear this is. So here I am 11 hours later. Things look really good. Like normally I am so oily, especially with how hot it was today, but things are looking good. So there's my little wear test for you guys. It really is so long wear and so natural looking. It looks so pretty all day. The skin just really turned out exactly the way that I was hoping. And I hope that you guys like this look as much as I do. Please tag me if you recreate this, especially on your wedding day. And I hope you found these tips and tricks helpful. If you guys would like to see more versions of bridal looks, I realize I only have like a couple on my channel. And there's so many different types of bridal looks and brides out there. Some of which might not want to wear as much makeup, or some of you might want to wear a little more. So let me know if you would like to see a very specific type of tutorial in the same bridal realm. But hopefully in general you learned something, and hopefully this helps you on your big day. Congratulations to anyone who's getting married, and I hope you guys feel beautiful and confident and just like the most elevated, best version of yourself on your big day. I love you so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Love you.